a lifetime of dealing with narcissists, starting with narcissist individuals within my immediate family, including children who were not mine, that I had to raise as a kid myself due to parental neglect. So I know all the tricks in the book. Like many people who have interacted with and been harmed by narcissistic traits in others, we tend to get obsessed with rooting out narcissism within ourselves. This, I think, makes us very religious and disciplined about regulating ourselves and keeping us within the realm of authenticity and integrity. There are, of course, many different ways that narcissism can show up in different contexts. I am constantly astounded by how common this personality illness has become. It's now a global pandemic of narcissism that everybody seems to have. But we know that narcissists are not born, they are made. And we also know that colonial hierarchies of power promote divide and conquer through individual reward and hence on a psychological level, narcissistic tendencies. What's your experience with narcissism and what makes narcissism so important in our colonial world order?
Yeah, I think narcissism sustains the colonial world order. As you said, you are pointing to narcissism as a culture, not as a personal disorder. And I think this is so amplified with social media. And I recently went to Peru, and in Machu Picchu, I had this horrible experience of like being there. And then the first seconds, I was like completely shocked by the magnificence of the place that I was. And then 3 seconds later, I noticed all the people around me and what they were doing. And nobody, like 95% of the people were just like there with their smartphone putting their face in front of Machu Picchu. Like it's so crazy to want to like this incentivization of the cult of the self and this kind of seek of toxic engagement and likes and this whole thing now it reached a level of narcissism being almost the standard, and I think a lot of colonialism and imperialism can be read through this lens of narcissism because it is a whole culture of entitlement, deprivation, rage that as there is this concept of the wettical disease from that captures this as this cannibalistic condition of the spirit that wants to consume everything, consume others to feed itself. And Western civilization has amassed the wealth and power to match its own narcissistic entitlement. And within the field of sustainability or impact work, these fields are mined with these narcissistic tendencies that are backed by saviorism, paternalism, and white supremacy patterns that are hiding behind moral high horses, claims of positive impact, and all of that. And I think as a culture, it sustains itself to a set of recognizable behaviors like this self-centeredness, the denial or willful blindness to not look at some things because they are not comfortable. So there is this entitlement to comfort, scapegoating blame, victimizing oneself, not recognizing one's privilege, finding justifications or scapegoating things all the time. So, and of course, completely ditching accountability. So I think this is kind of the operating system of the colonial world order we live in. And this whole culture of narcissism that protects itself from accountability, shame. And I think reaching this cultural level, then culture itself has to get serious about confronting it, which means, building system where this is combated, like where accountability is unavoidable and
But
responsibility can be
how is that possible when the entire culture is literally like based upon narcissism?
exactly. I don't think it is, and I think
Like,
giving the
can any amount of justice or accountability actually police a culture that is based on narcissism?
I don't think so. I think it's very unlikely, and there is a personal path we can take that is of disinvesting as much as possible from these narcissistic cultures and curating environments for ourselves that are based on more healthier ways of relating, like the choices we can make. But as a cultural level, as you said, if the culture itself is embedded in this, it's very difficult that the culture like will destroy itself. Like I don't think that will be doable. I think even though the only path to disarm a culture is to a culture, I don't think that that is a possibility. So there is this more personal path that we can take, given the things that we have under our access, like the choices we can make in our personal lives, and then try to bring others with us. But like from a cultural perspective, I think it's very difficult to change this.
Yeah, especially like I said, when it comes to globalization and this one single global culture of Western modernism, it's really rooted in narcissism that, yeah, as you said, the only way to get out of it is to destroy itself. And unfortunately, the story of the human race is that basically everybody became a narcissist and the entire planet died. That's kind of like how it's playing out. And we're at this stage of collapse where it's like, well, I don't know, we're a few generations in the future of when something should have actually already been done to kind of like stop this whole mess. So we're very late coming to the game, but this is where we are and we have to choose how we want to play, right?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
something you said also made me think about how our systems of corruption are rooted in narcissism. Like when you were talking about avoiding accountability and sort of like centering ourselves and all these things, I started thinking about corrupt systems, not only in the global south, but especially in the global north. And you see what's happening right now with the US and Europe, a lot of political displays of essentially narcissism and not only that, but protecting the power structure and kind of like maintaining their entitlement to certain forms of not only profiteering, but also ownership. There's this like very dominant narrative of ownership and something, about who deserves what and the kind of manipulations that are being attempted in order to guarantee future profits or future ownerships. Essentially, the global elites are manipulating power structures at the moment in a way to guarantee ownership of basically everything in the near future. I'm not even talking about like, next generation or next lifetime, but literally in the next few years, right? And this has been in place like for decades. The same playbooks have been happening since the colonial era of like 200, 300 years ago. It's exactly the same in terms of like the propaganda tactics, the geopolitical tactics, the political maneuvering tactics, etc. And the use of like financial mechanisms to cement their power, their logics, their reasoning, etc. And we're all kind of just powerless to do a lot apart from like take ourselves out of the system as much as we can and let it kind of like take the entire planet down with it. So I was wondering about your thoughts on narcissism and corruption, or how the culture of narcissism is part of what creates the systemic corruption that is making everyone Everyone, just more exploited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's totally related. For the person to have the entitlement of like center themselves and perpetuate injustice to others to for personal benefit or for benefit of a smaller group of people or whatever interests. I think it has everything to do with narcissism and some sort of cognitive dissonance that allows these people to justify to themselves what they are doing and
Yeah, but this
how.
is this is also the false self of the narcissist, right? The self-image that they are curating that at the same time they need to look in the mirror all the time because they're so vain, but they are not looking really at what's in the mirror. And there's this like false image that they're looking at. I mean, this is the myth and legend of the narcissist looking at their own self-reflection, but it's not real.
Exactly. And I think this is such a huge thing in our cultures nowadays, this false identity, because we are so feeding this image that we want to reproduce of ourselves is not who we are, and that is often because of this phenomena of globalization and social media. It's like everybody, even through the statistical procedures, everybody's kind of looking the same, and you lose
Dressing the
your.
same, you mean like the same fashion is being marketed to them and sold to them as like, oh, if you're in with this culture, then you'll dress in this way and you'll talk in this way. And yeah, the same like language of social justice is exactly the same. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, so there is this false identity, false sense of belonging because you are not like, is this false reality that people buy into instead of, fostering their own authenticity and rooting themselves in their culture and communities and cultures of care that are real and available, but it's like not being invested in, and instead investing in this false reality. It's so toxic.
Yeah. And I think on the intergenerational level, for example, when you get down to a generation who has nobody to turn to, like nobody's interested in the safety of that generation. That's basically like started with my generation as the millennials. And then now you have the Gen Zs who are kind of like well and truly the veil has lifted. And they're just kind of like, well, why should I participate? You know.
Mm-hmm,
At the same
mm-hmm,
time, they are some of the most narcissistic people that I've ever met. So
mm-hmm. Yeah.
so it's like, the creature eating itself. It's cannibalizing itself. Um, but I don't know. That's the story of the human race. Yeah.